You need to understand something crucial right now. When a woman pushes you away, when she seems distant, when her attention wanes, it is not a signal that she doesn't care. On the contrary, it is the most honest expression of desire she has. It is a paradox that confounds many men. The moment she wants you most is the moment she will retreat, and the moment you must stand the strongest. Most men panic here. They misinterpret this withdrawal as rejection, as a failing on their part, and they scramble to regain control. They send messages, offer reassurances, they chase, because they confuse attention with love, proximity with security. This is exactly the point where the wise man steps back, where the disciplined man remains grounded. You see, desire is not given to weakness. Desire is given to presence, to strength, to the man who does not bend at the whims of fear. She pushes away because she is seeking a kind of stability that she cannot manufacture on her own. She is testing whether you are anchored in purpose, or whether you are just floating on emotion. And here is the fundamental truth. What she tests you with, she ultimately respects. The very act that makes a man nervous, that makes a man doubt himself, is the very act that, if handled correctly, signals his worthiness. When she distances herself, she is saying, perhaps unconsciously, "Are you a man who can exist independently of my moods? Can you maintain your standard when the world attempts to pull you off course?" If your reaction is measured, controlled, disciplined, you communicate a strength that cannot be fabricated, that cannot be coerced, that cannot be demanded. Strength attracts, weakness repels. Do not misinterpret withdrawal for disinterest. The world is not a fairy tale where love is constant, easy, or simple. The moments when a woman retreats, when she challenges you with her absence, are the moments where your character is revealed. Are you desperate to recover her attention, or are you secure enough to maintain your path? Do you chase after validation, or do you uphold your standards no matter how uncomfortable it feels? The man she desires, the man who triggers longing rather than indifference, is the man whose life is full independent of her presence, whose attention is earned rather than assumed, whose value is demonstrated by discipline rather than panic. Understand that desire is amplified by challenge, by distance, by the need to prove. The more a man collapses under pressure, the more the dynamic is broken. The more he remains firm, the more she unconsciously recognizes a foundation she can rely on. And this is the deeper psychology at work. When she pushes, she is creating the space for your worth to manifest. She wants to see if you are grounded in reality, if your purpose is larger than the fluctuations of her moods, if your life is worth the investment of attention. Most men fail because they confuse her temporary withdrawal with permanent denial. They believe attraction is about immediate gratification. It is not. Attraction is a reflection of stability, of confidence, of unshakable integrity. What does this require from you? First, you must cultivate self-mastery. Emotional reactivity is your enemy. Panic, over-explaining, neediness, they are poison. You must understand that your worth is not determined by her momentary behavior. It is determined by your consistent pursuit of purpose, by your ability to maintain your boundaries, and by the clarity with which you hold your vision for life. She will be drawn to the man who is reliable, disciplined, and unapologetically committed to growth. She will pull closer when she sees that your presence is not contingent on her approval but on your adherence to a higher standard. Second, you must embrace patience as power. The desire she expresses through absence is a signal, not a demand. You are not here to rescue her emotions. You are here to demonstrate stability, to hold the line, to show that attraction is earned and reinforced through consistent integrity. In these moments, the man who overreacts diminishes desire. The man who stands firm, who continues to expand, to pursue his goals, to live fully, cultivates magnetic pull. She senses that energy unconsciously. She recognizes it, even if she cannot articulate it. Finally, you must respect the boundaries she tests. She is not your adversary. She is a mirror for your strength. If she pushes, it is because she feels the depth of your potential to disappoint or to amaze. By maintaining clarity, discipline, and purpose, you do not simply survive her withdrawal, you thrive. You transform it into a stage where your character, your values, and your presence shine most brightly. She will come closer, not because you begged, not because you cajoled, not because you manipulated, but because your strength, your stability, and your unwavering pursuit of excellence make her desire inevitable. Remember this, the moments of withdrawal are not punishments, they are tests. The moments of doubt are not failures, they are opportunities. The moments of tension are not threats, they are the proving grounds of your value. Desire does not thrive on comfort. It thrives on the integrity of a man who refuses to compromise under pressure. She pulls away because she wants to see the full measure of your presence. Stand firm. Maintain purpose. Be disciplined. She is drawn not to your words, but to the gravity of your life. Be that man, and everything changes. Emotional paradox. That is the battlefield where desire is forged and lost, where attraction ignites and dies, and where the true measure of strength is revealed. The paradox is simple to state, but devastatingly difficult to navigate. The very moments when someone wants you most, when their longing is deepest, are often the moments they push you away. The very intensity that draws them near creates a distance, and the very desire they feel produces a test of your character. Most people do not understand this. Most men react with panic, with confusion, with an urgent need to recover lost attention. They fail to recognize that the push away is not a withdrawal of love, it is the most honest expression of it. It is an unspoken invitation to rise above weakness, to demonstrate self-mastery, to show that your value is not contingent on the approval of another, but on the integrity of your own life. The paradox exists because desire is never linear. Emotion is not logic, and longing does not follow the path we expect. When someone retreats, it is often because they are seeking stability, clarity, and evidence that you are the kind of presence that can be relied upon under pressure. If you react by chasing, by begging, by over-explaining, you signal the opposite, that your identity, your energy, your focus can be disrupted by mere emotion. This is a fatal mistake. Desire, attraction, respect, they are all amplified when you stand firm, when you maintain composure, when your life is ordered and purposeful. The paradox is cruel. The closer she comes in feeling, the more you must demonstrate distance in response, not by ignoring her, but by embodying unshakable stability. Why is this? Because human nature is wired to test and measure. We are drawn not to what is easy, but to what is worth pursuing. We are compelled by challenge, and we respect integrity. The emotional paradox teaches that when someone withdraws, they are not rejecting you, they are presenting you with a crucible. How you respond determines the trajectory of desire. If you collapse under pressure, you confirm doubt. If you rise with clarity and discipline, you inspire longing. Strength is magnetic, neediness repels. The paradox is that the very act that threatens to scare a man away is the act that, if handled correctly, solidifies attraction beyond mere superficial interest. Understand this at a fundamental level. When someone pushes away, they are seeking proof. Proof that you are consistent. Proof that you are grounded, proof that your attention and energy are not swayed by momentary emotional turbulence. They are unconsciously measuring the depth of your values, the resilience of your purpose, and the gravity of your character. Most men fail because they cannot see past the immediate fear of loss. They interpret absence as denial, retreat as rejection, confusion as failure. The emotional paradox is unforgiving. Desire is strongest not when it is comfortable, but when it is challenged. When it tests the boundaries of self-mastery, your response must be disciplined. Panic, negotiation, and pleading are distractions that erode attraction. Calmness, focus, and persistence in the pursuit of meaningful goals are the tools that convert tension into respect. You do not recover desire by reaction. You cultivate it through integrity. You do not regain attention through urgency. You earn it by demonstrating that your life has weight, that your energy has direction, that your identity is unshakable. She feels it. Others feel it. The universe responds to strength more than words. This is the heart of the paradox. The closer the emotional force pushes, the firmer your center must remain. The greater the pull, the stronger your equilibrium. This is the essence of presence, of real power. The emotional paradox also teaches a lesson about timing. Desire is not about immediacy. It is about tension and release, about challenge and recognition, about proving worth in the face of subtle resistance. She will pull closer not when you collapse, but when she recognizes that your energy cannot be taken lightly, that your life is lived with purpose, that your attention is earned. This requires patience, discipline, and a refusal to negotiate your values for temporary relief. It is not cruelty. It is clarity. It is not avoidance. It is presence. And it is in this space that longing is intensified, that respect deepens, that attraction becomes almost unavoidable. Finally, the emotional paradox is a mirror for personal growth. It reveals weaknesses, tests consistency, and forces the cultivation of self-mastery. You cannot control emotion, either yours or another's. You can only control your response. You can only choose to embody discipline, integrity, and purpose. You can only demonstrate that your life is not contingent on validation, but on the pursuit of standards. Those who understand this paradox, who embrace the discomfort, who thrive in the tension, are the ones who are sought after, not merely desired. They are the ones whose presence is felt, whose absence is noticed, and whose value is recognized without question. Emotional paradox. It is the battlefield of human connection, the proving ground of desire, and the crucible of self-mastery. Those who understand it, who face it without fear, who rise in the midst of tension, become magnetic. Those who ignore it, who collapse under its weight, remain invisible in the sea of distraction and fleeting attention. Desire does not respond to weakness, it responds to strength. It responds to presence. It responds to purpose. And it is only through understanding the paradox that push away at the height of need that true attraction, respect, and meaningful connection are forged. Self-mastery over reaction. That is the foundation of every meaningful relationship, every lasting connection, and every moment of true respect. Too many people confuse emotion with power. They believe that feeling intensely or reacting immediately is a sign of authenticity. They believe that urgency equals importance, that panic signals care. But the truth is the opposite. Uncontrolled reaction is the death of attraction, the erosion of trust, and the manifestation of weakness. To master yourself over reaction is not a simple act. It is a daily discipline, a conscious decision to rise above the chaos of emotion and to act in accordance with principle rather than impulse. In the world of human connection, this is the line between fleeting attention and lasting influence. Every person you encounter, particularly those you care for most, will test you not with words alone, but with their emotional shifts, with their silence, with their withdrawal, with the subtle pressures that aim to provoke insecurity. And make no mistake, these tests are not malicious, they are inevitable. Life is structured to reveal character through challenge, and connection is no exception. The individual who cannot maintain composure under these circumstances is at the mercy of circumstance. They are reactive, fragile, and dependent on validation. Desire, attraction, and respect, however, respond to the man who is disciplined, composed, and deliberate in action. Reaction is easy. Self-mastery is hard, but in the hardness lies power. When a woman pulls away, when doubt is expressed, when her attention wavers, the untrained man panics. He sends messages, he seeks reassurance, he over-explains. He allows the shifting tides of emotion to dictate his behavior. In this moment, he is a reflection of instability, a mirror of insecurity, a man whose value is determined by external signals rather than internal standards. This is not a path to attraction. This is not a path to respect. The woman who desires strength is unconsciously drawn to the man whose inner equilibrium is unshakable. She's drawn to the one who responds not to her fluctuation, but to his vision, his purpose, and his adherence to principle. This is where self-mastery over reaction becomes not a choice, but a necessity. Understand that your emotions are signals, not commands. They alert you to danger, desire, discomfort, and opportunity, but they do not dictate behavior. When you learn to observe your impulses without being consumed by them, you create space for strategic action. You choose presence over panic, clarity over confusion, discipline over chaos. The woman who pulls away is testing this capacity. Often unconsciously, she is measuring whether your energy is reliable, whether your attention is stable, whether your life is directed by principle rather than whim. Your reaction, or lack thereof, communicates far more than any words could. Self-mastery signals value. Reaction signals vulnerability. The distinction is subtle, but it determines attraction. The disciplined man recognizes that absence, silence, or challenge is not rejection, it is data. It is information about the structure of human desire. It is a call to maintain the integrity of one's own standards while respecting the space of another. He does not collapse under tension, he rises. He does not over-explain, he communicates through consistency. He does not chase, he continues to expand. The paradox is clear. When others pull away, the magnetic force of your self-mastery draws them closer. The weaker your control, the more you repel. The stronger your discipline, the more inevitable the attraction. Self-mastery over reaction is not passive. It is active, deliberate, and courageous. It requires that you define your values, pursue your goals, and operate from a foundation of clarity. It requires that you recognize every emotional tug as an opportunity to demonstrate the depth of your character. It requires patience, persistence, and the understanding that immediate gratification is often the enemy of lasting influence. Most people mistake activity for progress, noise for action, and reactivity for love. The truth is that calm, steady, intentional behavior in the face of emotional turbulence creates an almost gravitational pull that cannot be manufactured, manipulated, or forced. This principle extends beyond attraction. It is the cornerstone of all meaningful human interaction. Leaders who panic under pressure lose respect. Partners who overreact lose trust. Individuals who allow emotion to dominate action invite chaos into their lives. By contrast, those who master themselves create stability, predictability, and authority. They communicate value not through words but through presence, consistency, and the undeniable weight of integrity. They understand that the quality of their response defines the quality of their relationships, the trajectory of their life, and the depth of their influence. In practical terms, this requires awareness and discipline. You must pause before you speak. You must evaluate before you act. You must allow emotional intensity to pass through observation rather than dictating behavior. When someone tests you, when a challenge arises, when tension escalates, you respond not from fear, need, or desire for approval, but from principle, strategy, and vision. This is self-mastery over reaction. The ability to operate from your highest standard, regardless of the pressure surrounding you. Ultimately, the men who succeed, the men who attract, the men who are remembered, are those who refuse to be moved by the temporary chaos of emotion. They are steady, disciplined, intentional, and principled. They demonstrate that desire, respect, and connection are not reward for frantic attention, but for strength, integrity, and self-mastery. When you embody this, you are untouchable by doubt, unshakable by absence, and magnetic in your presence. Self-mastery over reaction is not a skill, it is a way of life. It is the difference between desperation and attraction, weakness and power, mediocrity and significance. Those who embrace it rise. Those who do not falter, presence and purpose. There is no greater force in human interaction than the combination of these two qualities. Presence is not simply being seen, it is being felt. It is the weight of your attention, the gravity of your character, and the undeniable energy you bring into a space. Purpose is not merely ambition, it is direction, clarity, and a life guided by principle rather than distraction. Together, they create a force that draws people in, commands respect, and inspires longing. Without presence, purpose is ignored. Without purpose, presence is empty. The man who masters both is untouchable not because he manipulates or coerces but because his very existence is an affirmation of stability, direction, and value. Most men fail to understand this. They mistake busyness for purpose, charm for presence, and proximity for significance. They believe that attention is earned through words, that desire is created through pursuit, that influence comes from effort alone. But the truth is far more subtle and far more powerful. Attention, attraction, and respect are drawn to energy that is aligned, consistent, and intentional. A woman senses this immediately. She senses whether your life has weight, or whether it drifts like a leaf in the wind. She senses whether your decisions are guided by vision or by impulse. She senses whether your presence in her world is a gift or a distraction. Presence and purpose are the magnets that make her pull toward you even when she resists, that make her longing inevitable even when she tests you with distance. Presence is cultivated through self-mastery. It requires that you command your attention, manage your energy, and inhabit the moment fully. It demands that you listen, not simply hear. It requires that you operate from clarity rather than reaction, that your interactions carry intention rather than noise. Presence is not about performance or display. It is about consistency, confidence, and an energy that is steady, unwavering, and undeniably grounded. When a man has presence, his silence is as commanding as his words. His calm is more persuasive than panic. His steadiness communicates value in a way that cannot be faked, cannot be argued against, and cannot be diminished. Purpose is the framework for presence. Without purpose, presence is transient, shallow, and ultimately meaningless. Purpose is the vision that guides your actions, the standard that determines your choices, and the ambition that drives your growth. It is not about chasing attention, seeking validation, or reacting to desire. It is about living according to a standard, pursuing a life that is larger than immediate gratification, and creating a trajectory that others naturally want to be part of. A man with purpose commands respect because he demonstrates that his life is direct, his energy is finite and meaningful, and his values are non-negotiable. Purpose is what makes absence compelling, attention earned, and desire sustainable. The combination of presence and purpose is transformative. When a woman tests, when she pulls away, when she retreats in uncertainty, It is not rejection, it is an invitation. It is a space for the man to demonstrate that his life is anchored in something deeper than fleeting emotion. She senses immediately whether he will be moved by panic or whether he will stand firm. She recognizes whether his energy can be relied upon, or whether it is chaotic, reactive, and hollow. When presence and purpose are aligned, distance does not weaken attraction, it strengthens it. When she feels the gravity of your vision and the clarity of your attention, longing is not manufactured, it is inevitable. Most men misunderstand this because they focus on outcomes rather than foundation. They chase attention, they seek validation, they scramble for proximity. The man who embodies presence and purpose does the opposite. He cultivates himself, expands his vision, and allows the natural force of his energy to draw others toward him. He does not negotiate standards for temporary comfort. He does not compromise clarity for immediate approval. He does not chase what is naturally attracted to strength. This is not arrogance, it is discipline. It is not distance, it is magnetic integrity. It is the unspoken language of value, desire, and respect. Presence and purpose also demand sacrifice. You cannot be fully present if your mind is scattered, your energy is consumed by distraction, if your priorities are undefined. You cannot have purpose if your actions are aimless, if your life lacks direction, if your standards are negotiable. Cultivating both requires focus, patience, and relentless commitment to the highest standard you can achieve. It requires that you confront discomfort, resist triviality, and embrace responsibility as the vehicle for growth. In this crucible, character is formed and attraction is solidified. Finally, presence and purpose are contagious. They do not simply affect you, they affect everyone around you. People are drawn to energy that is aligned, consistent, and intentional. They recognize weight and direction instinctively. Desire, respect, and influence are not granted. They are earned through the gravity of a man's life. The moment you embody presence and purpose, you cease to chase. You cease to negotiate. You cease to plead. Others are drawn to you not by words, not by manipulation, but by the undeniable force of alignment between your being and your actions. Presence and purpose are the pillars of strength, attraction, and influence. They are not optional, they are essential. They define the man who is sought after, remembered, and respected. They distinguish fleeting desire from lasting connection. They turn absence into longing, tension into respect, and attraction into loyalty. Cultivate them, embody them, and let your life speak with a gravity that cannot be ignored. Presence and purpose are not simply qualities, they are your life in action. And in their mastery lies unshakable power. Respect through boundaries. There is no clearer signal of value than a man who defines what is acceptable and refuses to compromise on it. Boundaries are not walls meant to keep others out. They are the framework through which a person communicates worth, integrity, and strength. Most people fear boundaries because they confuse them with rejection or rigidity. They believe flexibility and approval are signs of connection. But the truth is the opposite. Without boundaries, there is no respect, no trust, and no lasting attraction. Boundaries are the language of clarity. They demonstrate to the world and to those closest to you that your life has structure, your energy is finite, and your standards are non-negotiable. A woman, like anyone who is testing a man's value, will push against limits. She will question them, challenge them, and create tension to measure your consistency. This is not adversarial, it is a natural mechanism of human interaction. Boundaries reveal character. They reveal whether you are guided by impulse or principle, by chaos or integrity. The man who bends, compromises, or negotiates away his boundaries under pressure signals instability. He communicates that his energy can be taken for granted, that his standards are malleable, and that his self-respect is negotiable. Attraction dies in this space. Conversely, the man who holds firm, who enforces boundaries with calm authority, communicates something profoundly magnetic, that his life has weight, his standards have meaning, and his presence is not something to be trivialized. Respect through boundaries is not about control or domination, it is about clarity and self-respect. It is about understanding that your energy is a currency and that it is not to be spent on triviality, panic, or the whims of others. Every person in your life will test these boundaries. Some will pull away, some will push forward. Some will create confusion and tension to see whether you will yield. Your response, or more precisely, your refusal to yield unnecessarily defines the level of respect you command. When your boundaries are clear, consistent, and unwavering, others learn quickly how to treat you. They learn that your presence is not guaranteed, that your attention is valuable, and that your approval must be earned. The paradox of boundaries is profound. The more firm they are, the more magnetic you become. People, particularly women who desire strength, unconsciously test these limits to assess reliability. The man who is reactive, pleading, or indecisive loses influence. The man who is calm, steady, and principled gains not only respect but desire. This is because boundaries are the external expression of self-mastery. They demonstrate that you are guided by a higher standard than temporary emotion, that your life has structure beyond immediate gratification, and that your energy is finite and protected. Respect is not given. It is earned by the courage to define what is acceptable and to enforce it consistently. Boundaries also provide clarity for connection. They create a space where attraction can flourish because there is no ambiguity about what is acceptable and what is not. People are drawn to structure, to certainty, to reliability. When a man has boundaries, he removes chaos from his interaction. He communicates exactly what he values, what he will tolerate, and how he expects to be treated. This does not create distance. It creates alignment. It filters those who are willing to meet his standards and draws toward him those who recognize the gravity of his life. In this space, attraction, respect, and loyalty are not incidental, they are inevitable. Maintaining boundaries requires discipline, courage, and self-awareness. It requires that you confront discomfort rather than avoid it. It requires that you resist the temptation to please at the expense of principle. Every test of your boundaries is an opportunity to demonstrate value and to solidify respect. This is particularly true in relationships where emotional intensity can create pressure to compromise. The man who understands boundaries does not react emotionally to pressure, he responds from clarity. He does not negotiate his integrity for temporary comfort, he holds firm and allows others to adjust. This is the difference between being chased and being chosen, between fleeting attention and lasting influence. Boundaries are also a reflection of self-respect. The man who cannot define limits demonstrates that his identity is fragile, that his energy is expendable, and that his principles are negotiable. The man who holds boundaries demonstrates that his life is anchored in standards, that his time and attention are finite, and that his energy is reserved for what truly matters. Respect, desire, and loyalty flow naturally toward this kind of strength. They recognize weight, direction, and purpose instinctively. The presence of a man who respects himself through boundaries is magnetic because it signals that his value is inherent and undeniable. Ultimately, respect through boundaries is not just a strategy, it is a way of life. It defines the men who are sought after, admired, and remembered. It turns tension into admiration, tests into desire, and absence into longing. It communicates clarity without words, strength without arrogance, and value without negotiation. To master boundaries is to master attraction. To enforce them consistently is to command respect. To live by them unwaveringly is to become the kind of person whose presence matters, whose absence is felt, and whose influence is undeniable. Boundaries are not limitations. They are the architecture of power, integrity, and lasting connection.